Okay, let's get you teaching that first oils class. So, before we go through like the actual template that we use to teach a class, I want to just pass on some mindset upgrades when we think about this really kind of early stage of your business, this infancy where you're learning so much and applying so much. And the first thing that I want you to really take on is that I want you to release the pressure to be an expert in your business. You do not need to be an expert to teach an oils class. You do not need to be teaching or using oils for a certain period of time. I meet so many people who are like, okay, when I'm using the oils for like 6 months and I'm more knowledgeable and like X, Y, and Z, like think of all the different excuses that come up. I want you to release those because really where you're going to learn is in the doing. And there's a phrase that I've always embodied in my business, and that's ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. Because when you're starting in this business and you're like, okay, I'll wait until I go off and I do that course and I'm more familiar with this and like I need to practice and I need to learn. And yes, there's learning and there's practicing, but we do that in the doing. We do that in the building. Because to be honest, it's not like there's like a start and an end goal when it comes to training. We're on the job training, and that's always the best teacher. Life is the best teacher. Experience is the best teacher. So the mindset that I invite you to take on is that you do not need to be an expert to teach an oils class. You do not need to be an expert to do well in this business. And oftentimes imposter syndrome lurks in, and we want to just like get rid of that from now. Because if we let that fester and if we let those thoughts and those beliefs come in of, I'm not good enough, I'm not experienced enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not experienced enough, I'll wait until I go to this training to learn and then I'll be able to teach. Because to be honest, there's always something there that's going to distract us and make us feel like we're not good enough. I want you to take on the belief and the mindset now that you are good enough now and you're knowledgeable enough now. If you know how to use even 3 essential oils, you have enough knowledge to teach a class. And if you don't, and you're literally opening your oils and you're looking at them for the first time and you're learning about this business because you're like, wow, this is amazing. That doesn't matter either because you're going to be learning as you go. So what I'm going to do is I want to share a template with you so you know exactly how to teach a class. You can take this training, take the template, and apply your own experiences and your own stories and how you use oils in your way and in your style. A template is only a template. A template is just to keep us to time. It helps us get the relevant points across in a class. We want everyone to walk away with the same information, irrespective if we're having a class with 2 friends sitting around your kitchen table or if you're in a community hall presenting to 15 people. We want to make sure the exact same information gets across. And also in the early days when we're learning so much about oils and we're so mesmerized, it's so easy to overteach, and we want to avoid that. Because why? Because the people in front of you are only going to take on so much. And it's really easy to become overwhelmed in the room when we're fire hosing information. And what I want to also invite you to do is get out of the mindset as well of us teaching. What we are really doing, like we'll talk about teaching and presenting, yeah, of course, but what we're really doing is storytelling. We're telling our story. We're telling about other people's story. We're sharing experiences. And that's going to always paint such a clearer picture for people than standing up and talking about facts and figures and science. Because at the end of the day, when you're teaching anything, people will always remember the way that you make them feel instead of the information that you're relaying. So when I say the way you make people feel, it's not, from facts and figures. Maybe it is a little bit, but they'll remember a story. Like there's elements of a story that evoke emotion. So where you can bring emotion into your workshops and storytelling into your workshops, it makes it stick for people and it helps points land. So just bringing that in the early phases of your business will help. And also your experience is a story, and we're going to get through that in a few minutes. So when I'm teaching a class, I use a template that I pass around in the room. And everyone can scribble on it. They can bring their own note. You can hand out pens. Some people like to jot notes down into their phone. But I pass around a template, and the template we're going to go through now, I'm going to do like a mini oils tutorial right here, right now. And the reason that we want to use the template is because we want to make sure that everyone walks away knowing certain things that are really important. And when I say really important, it helps your people that are in the room understand what we're teaching them. And also it helps us stay to point, because it can get really easy to like waffle and go over time. And if people are coming to a class in the evening and they're wrecked, or they have a long day in front of them, we want to make sure that the right information is being relayed, and that no one is kind of sitting there going, oh, here, I have to go. Like this was meant to be an hour and it's now an hour, 10 minutes, and she hasn't even gotten to the Q&A, and people leave and they're confused. So what we want to do is we want to tighten it all up, and we're going to bring in storytelling in a really effective way. So the first thing that I want you to think of when we think about this template is the template is like a recipe. So when I say a recipe, there are some foundational pieces of this class. So when I say foundational pieces, there's kind of like the first phase of your class is the first phase is 3 parts: what an essential oil is, the industry, so the difference in the quality, and number 3 is a little bit about the science, wrapped into a bit of storytelling. So it's phase 1. Phase 2 is how oils work, or how we use them topically, internally, and aromatically. So that's what I want you to get from today. I want you to get those parts of our class. So our phase 1 and our phase 2. There is a phase 3, which I'll just touch on. Phase 3 is picking your oils that you want to talk about in the class, and then how to actually close. But today we want to get nailed the storytelling element of your phase 1 and phase 2. So I'm going to open up the worksheet here, or the template. Okay, here we go. So I have used this template from my very first class, and I'm literally going, after I record this, to do an oils tutorial one-to-one with somebody. It's the same template, and it always converts for me because it's easy, the relevant information goes across, and we can wrap in our storytelling into it. So the first thing, when you're standing up and welcoming everyone into your class, is I want you to do a little intro to how you got started with oils. And I want you to really keep it into about 5 minutes. So everyone is there because they want to learn about oils. And when we're sharing our experience, it helps share the why. Like why these have made such an impact in our lives. So for example, when I stand up, I have pretty much the same intro every class, and I share about the before, because everything is about a transformation, and that's part of my story. So the before is, I worked in finance, I was really stressed, I was trying to get pregnant, I was deeply unhappy in my job, I had loads of chronic problems, like digestive problems, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus, my cycle was out of balance. So I give that little, help paint that picture, and that's part of the storytelling. So I bring in the challenge that I was experiencing, and then how I was introduced. Well, actually, I thought I had an allergy, and I sat in front of a nutritionist, and the nutritionist told me that I needed to look at my lifestyle, and she introduced me to oils. And within my first month of using oils, my cycle that was 80 days came back down to 30. So that's my story in a nutshell. And I spent about 5 minutes crafting that to kind of set the stage of wow, that was my wow experience, oils work. And you'll have your own experience. So I know different people will say, some people might be a wow moment with their kids. It might be a wow moment with their stress, their sleep, their emotions. Everyone has a different wow moment. But I want you to really encapsulate that story to set the stage. So that's the first kind of intro, 5 minutes. I like asking people just to think about what is it that they'd like to learn. And some people will say, oh, well, I want to learn about sleep, or I want to learn about, I need something for my skin and acne. And so I ask just to kind of warm up the room and start to set the tone of it being an engaging space. I do that. And then we get into it, and I'm like, okay, brilliant. We're going to cover all of that. And when you know who's sitting in front of you and you know who's in the room, it's also helpful because you might be able to go, okay, I know that person has young children. I know that person's teenagers doing the leaving cert. So you can kind of, when you know different people that are in the room, that helps. And also when you don't know, because plenty of times people bring people in you don't know. So it's nice to kind of have that icebreaker and be like, what would you like to learn about? And some people are shy, they don't speak up, that's fine. But it's just to think about, as I'm teaching my class, what examples and scenarios do I want to get across? So that's the intro to my class. And then I go, okay, well, let's get into it. So I literally, when we think about this template that's in front of us, I literally read from the page. And then I go into a little bit of storytelling for each phase. So remember, our phase 1 is what oils are, the industry, how they work, and then the 3 uses. So, okay, so let's get into, okay, what are essential oils? Well, oils are extracts from plants, they're highly concentrated, and they're 50 to 70 times more powerful than herbs. When you look at that image there that's in front of you, see that purple image with the little white sacs? That's actually a peppermint leaf underneath a microscope. And what those little oil sacs are, that's where the essential oil is kept. And that essential oil is there to protect the plant. So it does all of the things that we would expect, you know, when we think about like a natural medicine to do. So it's the bloodline of the plant. It helps the plant to cleanse toxins and oxygenate its cells. It helps to fend off parasites. It's antibacterial, it's antimicrobial. It does all of the things that we think of when we think about natural medicine. But when we think about us as living human beings and plants, we're very similar in our makeup. So what does that mean? Well, we have cells, plants have cells. We're living organisms, so are plants. We're both carbon-based. And what that means is that when we use essential oils for ourselves, they go to work for us as if they would for the plant. So the great thing about using oils is that when we're using them, our body knows exactly what to do with them. And it's not like something synthetic that we take and our body has to like try and break it down and figure out, what do I do with it? And, you know, sometimes it can get confused, and that's when we get side effects. So the beautiful thing about oils is that they are natural, our body recognizes them, and we don't have side effects. And really, essential oils are like the earliest form of medicine that we know. Those early records, when we think about throughout histories, like in ancient Greece and in, you know, Chinese ancient medicine, it's all documents the power of plants. So essential oils aren't new. They're the original form of how we looked after ourselves as human beings and cared for ourselves and our families. And I know for myself, when I was first introduced to oils, I knew nothing about them. I really knew nothing. I thought that they were just something that you burn in your house and, you know, it might create a nice smell, and that was it. I had no idea of the potency and the power of what they could do. And I remember as well, you know, back when I was getting married, I used to get facials because I used to suffer from really bad acne, and I used to have this face mask and it was called a lavender repair mask. And I always remembered that, like, oh, lavender repair. So that was the first thing that I was like, oh yeah, so essential oils and plants are actually used in skincare. But outside of that, I never really knew anything about it until I went to my first oils class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pass around a bottle of peppermint. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the peppermint in 3 ways, because essential oils are extremely concentrated. So if you think back, they're 50 to 70 times more powerful than herbs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some peppermint and I'm going to pass it around, or even just pop a drop onto the palms of your hands. We're going to use this peppermint in 3 ways. I'm going to dab my finger in, roll it on the back of my neck, take a dab and put it to the roof of my mouth, and then rub my hands together, and then breathe and just take a really nice breath. And then I would pass around. I wouldn't pass around the bottle necessarily. I may do, but I'll just go around if it's a small group and just pop a drop in everyone's hands. And then I say, don't put it too close to your eyes because it's very potent. And then I let everyone just enjoy the peppermint. Like, the oils will teach the class. You're a facilitator. You're storytelling, you're leading it, you're guiding it, you're structuring it, you're setting the stage. Let the oils do the talking, get them on people. Because when the oils are on people, that is when people are like, oh my gosh, my sinuses have been at me all day and they're just clear. Oh my gosh, it's such a warm day now, I feel so cool. Oh my gosh, and oh gee, and people are surprised and they start giggling and laughing and they're like, gosh, you know, and then I say, well, you know, that 1 drop of peppermint that you've just used, that's the equivalent of 28 cups of peppermint tea. So when we think about the oils that we're using here, they're so concentrated and a little goes a long way. So we only need to use the tiniest amount to get massive results. And then I don't need to elaborate any more on that because everyone has the proof in the pudding right in front of them. So it's a really great way of being able to demonstrate, and it's a beautiful intro because in this template we're looking at a picture of a peppermint leaf underneath a microscope, and we have the peppermint here. So then I move on and I explain the industry. because people will have heard about essential oils. They'll probably have them in their press at home, but they're going to have something that's synthetic. So it's about describing the differences. So they're not leaving, for example, the class thinking, oh, I'll just go into the chemist and buy a bottle of whatever and expect the same result. So we just make sure it's very clear to understand. So we just describe what it means to be a certified pure tested grade oil. So I just, again, read from the page. Okay, well, these are actually the most purest essential oils that you'll find in the world. So if we think about the image that's in front of you, so that's circle there. So that's actually a picture that represents the essential oil industry. So if you look at that, we'll see that the vast majority of the essential oils in the industry are actually synthetic. What does synthetic mean? It means that an essential oil, something that's called an essential oil, can actually be created synthetically in a lab. There's no regulatory body, and it means that it's really simple for any type of manufacturer, producer to call something pure organic when it actually means nothing. There's no regulatory body, so it's fine for any company to do that. Not that it's fine, but there's no kind of legal repercussions or any kind of body that you can bring for false marketing or false claims, even if we think about the food industry. And then I might, and also just to point out in this class, I might give some practical examples. So I want you to think about as you're learning and listening to this, think about examples. So sometimes I'll say, okay, what I've been saying recently is, we're learning a lot about food labels. So I sometimes say, does anyone know the influencer Sophie Morris? She calls out food manufacturers on false labels and marketing. And when you actually turn around and look at the ingredients, you'll see that foods that have been promoted as low sugar and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, are actually not that. And the food industry is massively, heavily regulated, and they still get away with it. So can you imagine what goes on in an unregulated industry? So think about it. And that's just me, kind of my observation, just as a consumer. So think about different scenarios like that for yourself and think, how does that apply to oils? So I just explained. So the synthetic part of the industry is the vast majority of it. And then we have the food grade oils, which are things like your essences. So your extracts, like your vanilla extract or maybe an orange extract. You're getting a flavor. It's safe to ingest to a certain degree, but it's not therapeutic. You're not getting any real health benefits. You're getting a flavor from it. It's a flavoring. And then when we think about the therapeutic, so when we think of that inner yellow piece, that therapeutic is, when we go, we have a therapeutic experience and we're getting a massage, and it's a therapeutic experience in that we're relaxing. But the essential oils that are being used maybe in that aromatherapy massage are creating a relaxing experience, but we're not getting, for example, the deep work that doTERRA oils will do. So for example, if they're therapeutic, they might smell nice, they might be, there might be, low levels of chemical constituents. They're not going to work in the same way that the oils that we have here work, because they're, they don't go through the same, they're not sourced in the same way. So then the next piece is that tiny little green or red dot, and that's the oils that we're focusing on here. So certified pure tested grade. Well, what does it mean to be certified for pure tested grade? Well, number one, the oil has to be grown in its place of origin. So when we think about going out to the best parts of the world where we're going to get the best quality plants, when we go and get the best quality plants, we're going to have the best quality oil. We want to make sure these are grown naturally in the wild, that they're not being farmed at scale and they're being sprayed with pesticides and they're off these big highways. We want to make sure that we are getting oils and plants that are clean, and that we're able to prove that as well through our testing. So when we think about testing, all of our essential oils that we use, they actually go to doTERRA's labs, which are in Blarney in Cork. And we've about 100 employees down in Cork, teams of microbiologists and chemists, and they are literally looking at the essential oil underneath the microscope and making sure that the chemical constituents are there, that they're consistently high quality, they haven't been contaminated along the way, and the level of testing that they go to. They test for so much, even if it's been exposed to rust, mold, heavy metals. So we know that when we are getting essential oils and when they're in front of us, we're literally getting the best essential oils in the world. We know that they're safe to use internally. We know that they're safe to use on our babies. We know that we can use them as a natural form of looking after ourselves, that real first line of defense for families. And that's how I structure that part. So I want you to think, I'm talking about this the way I do, but you'll have your own style as well. So I want you to think about it and watch different videos, like maybe just look up, oil classes on YouTube and form your own style. But this is the framework. And if people ask you during the class, or if kind of people start having kind of conversations, and people do, because when it's a real relaxed environment, some people might just like pipe up and be like, oh, can I ask you a quick question there? The great thing about having a template is you can easily be brought back to the class very quickly. So if you're distracted, you can just go, okay, let's go back to the next, or let's go on to the next picture. Let's look at the next picture. Let's look at the next picture, because it's visual and it helps guide people along. So then after that, I go, okay, let's move on to the next picture. Well, what do we know about essential oils? Like, how do they work? Well, number one is they kill viruses and bacteria. So what does that mean? If we look at that picture there, it's an image of a cell, and that cell is protected by a cell membrane, which is that purple line that surrounds the cell. And you'll notice that there's bacteria in that picture. So when we get bacteria in our bodies, let's say we get some sort of a bacterial infection, or our kids get a bacterial infection, the bacteria sits outside the cell. And that's when, for example, we might go to the GP and the GP will prescribe an antibiotic, and the antibiotic can get in there and it can break down that bacteria, and our body can recover and fight. Our body can fight it off and recover. But the beautiful thing that I want you to know is that essential oils are also antibacterial. So oils like oregano essential oils, or oregano essential oil, is highly antibacterial. So I can use that oil in the same way to fight off bacterial issues that I might think are brewing in myself and my kids. And we don't have the side effects in the same way if you think about like an antibiotic, with affecting the gut microbiome. And then when we think about when we get sick, so let's just say a virus or a cold, the tricky thing about viruses is viruses get into that cell membrane. So if we look at that cell, we know it's protected, but viruses can get through it. And that's what makes them tricky. And that's why when we go to a GP with the virus, they'll say, there's nothing you can do. You just need to wait and kind of just wait for your body to break it down. And that's all good and well. But when you have, like you've responsibility, you've got work, you might have kids to look after. When you have all these different things, it's not just as easy as putting up the feet. So we want something that's going to help us when we think about viral things that come into our body, different types of viral issues, whether that's a respiratory viral problem, a flu, whatever it is. So the amazing thing about essential oils is because they have this tiny molecular structure, they can actually penetrate through that cell membrane, and they can go in and inhibit that virus from reproducing. So that basically means that we have a solution as soon as we feel run down. Like if we're stressed at work and our immune, we know that like, oh, I'm becoming run down, I'm stressed out, my immune system isn't as strong, that when we know when we're in that kind of vulnerable stage, or maybe there's threats in the environment, that we can use a beautiful blend called On Guard, which is a protective blend. It's highly antiviral. We can use that in the air to clean the air. We can apply it to our skin. We can take it internally to protect our immune system. So if we just even read the page here, okay, so the oils kill viruses and bacteria, antibiotics cannot penetrate through cell membranes, and essential oils can penetrate cells to kill viruses and bacteria. So then what I would do is I would pass around the On Guard, a very different experience. The peppermint was really cooling, this is warming. So we're just smelling the On Guard. I don't get anyone to put it on their skin because it's one of the spicier oils. And then the next, so that's our phase one of our class. So we're getting through the real practical. So they know exactly why doTERRA oils are a different grade. They know how they work. And it's just like, I remember actually when I went to one of my first classes, I was constantly on antibiotics. I used to get really bad UTIs. And I remember sitting in that class and looking at the picture of the cell. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. That is amazing. Like, and I'm taking all these antibiotics and I feel like shit on them. And like, it means that like then you've got thrush and all these different things. And I was amazed. So don't underestimate like the power of what's landing for different people, and different things will really, really resonate depending on everyone's life experience in the room. So phase one of our class, tick. Okay. Now we're going on to the next phase, which is it's kind of a bit fun. I love this phase. So this is the uses. Okay, so how do we actually use oils? Well, there's 3 ways that we can use them aromatically. So for example, I have a diffuser going in the background. That is actually diffusing in a real gentle way. It's diffusing essential oil into the air. Why would you want to do that? Well, number one, essential oils being diffused in the air can affect your mood really easily. So when I want to create a real relaxing mood at home, if I want to promote really good quality sleep, I'll diffuse something like lavender or frankincense or wild orange to just really like set the mood, set the tone, and be like, like it's just a beautiful way and a real natural way to be able to do that, and not just for you but for anyone in your family. So whether that's kids and you're trying to communicate, it's wind down time. Okay, we're going from like full on playtime to bedtime. Okay, so how are we going to communicate that? You know, when we think about like from the sensory point of view. Number two is they affect the airways. So we did that with our peppermint. We breathed it in and opened up the airways, but we can do that as well with a diffuser. So for example, when my little boy has a cough, I'll diffuse the respiratory blend called Air, which has like eucalyptus and peppermint and tea tree in there. And when that's being diffused in the air, it's opening up his airways, and it just means that he's getting a better night's sleep because he's not up all night coughing. And, you know, being a parent, you know, could be challenging enough, but then when you have a sick child, it's, you know, it impacts everyone's sleep and everyone's exhausted and it's emotionally, mentally draining, and, you know, people are in bad form. So we want to be able to promote sleep as much as possible. So having a diffuser with Air, the respiratory blend, is amazing at opening up the airways. And also when we know that threats are high, so for example, the On Guard example I gave, putting On Guard into your diffuser is help cleaning the air. So if we know somebody's sick and we want to stop that from traveling through the air in the home, we can diffuse On Guard. And also, what's not on that sheet there, but I just want to mention, is that like synthetic fragrance in homes is so harmful. It's one of the things that make homes so polluted. Synthetic fragrance have things like phthalates in them, and it's got loads of different chemicals, and it can be, you know, it can be real irritating to the airways, lungs. It can be irritating even to skin. If we think about pets, you know, ditching the synthetics and moving to a beautiful, you know, essential oil diffuser to have that gorgeous smell in your home it's a beautiful way to use them. So then your oils can work topically. So what does topically mean? It means using them on your skin. So the oils penetrate through your skin. So they work really fast. They enter the bloodstream within 30 seconds, and we can use them for real localized effects. So that means, you know, we'll use an oil topically on the skin. So for example, if there's a sore tummy, you can rub an oil over that local area, so that tummy, to get a real localized effect. We can integrate them into massage. So whether that's baby massage, if someone's run down, you can, you know, create like a real nurturing massage. And it provides immediate comfort for anyone's in pain or has inflammation. And we do that really simply. Now, the one thing to remember is that when we're using essential oils, for example, on babies or on children, we want to dilute them because their skin is that much more sensitive. But because the oils work in such a powerful way, and because they're tested and because they're safe, we know that we can use them from, like, you know, from infancy right through to, you know, the oldest, most sensitive of skin in a really safe way. We just want to dilute it. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to do an experiment. We're going to use some Balance. Balance is a grounding oil, and it is a gorgeous oil when we think about like just totally like resetting our nervous system, and we're going to use that topically. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do is to sit up straight in your chair and take a look to your left. And just make a note of the last point that you can see without twisting or straining your neck. And then come back to your center. And then the same thing. Notice the last point you can see. And then you're coming back to center. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass around Balance. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply this topically. We're actually going to apply it to our ears, because our ears have pressure points, all these acupressure points, and we want to massage the ears. Because when we think about all these acupressure points, it all links to the spine. And it's a great way of giving ourselves a full-on reset. Yeah. So we do this for about a minute. And what I do is I pass around. So I heavily put Balance in everyone's hands and let them massage for about a minute. By the time I walk around the room and do my own one, and like, you know, it's kind of a minute is up. Oh, smell. Now, everyone look again to your left. And just see or notice if you can see any further. And similarly to the right. Yeah. Even now I'm like, wow, just is so amazing. And I'm sure you all have done this before, but what we're doing by that is we're demonstrating how the oils are penetrating fast. So we're just relaying that. Okay, and everyone has a bit of a giggle. They're like, that's crazy. Oh my gosh, I had such tension in my shoulders, and it's released. And then it's just reinforcing what they've just learned. Okay, well, they work fast. They're in the bloodstream within 30 seconds. We've done that a minute ago. We've just released tension. We've opened up our flexibility. So it's again, like it's just the wow factor that everyone gets. So then we move on to the internal use. Okay, so, and then you can use the oils internally. Why do we use them internally? Well, they can detox the body. They can support the digestive system. They can support our mouth, throat and liver, and they support the urogenital tract. So when we think about like if we have, like cystitis or a UTI, by taking the oils internally, they're getting into our system and they're going through specifically through that path. But I love using essential oils internally, particularly things like the metabolic blend called MetaPower when I want to support my metabolism. If I have a sore throat, I can gargle. And then I also give examples of ways that they can use them based on their own needs that they might have come in for. So they might say, I want to use oils for maybe weight loss. And I'll say, okay, well, you can use oils by, creating a capsule. And what I would do is I'm just giving examples that are applicable to the person in the room. But I might say, okay, well, when I'm busy, what I do is my throat gets a bit sore, so I can create a gargle. If I feel like that's kind of scratchy throat time, it's a real easy way of being able to affect, your mouth, your throat in a real simple, effective way. So again, remember, this is the storytelling. So I want you to map into each of these phases of this class, your experience and how you use your oils, how you use the oils aromatically, how you use them topically, how you use them internally. And again, it doesn't matter if you're talking about the same oils. It's nice to give a bit of variety. I always stick to kind of the same oils, usually the oils that are in the Home Essentials kit. Even though I've used Balance there and Balance isn't in the Home Essentials kit, I still always refer back to it because it's just a nice way of being able to get everyone in the room really calm and really relaxed after a busy day. So that's us for this kind of micro lesson. In our next module, we'll be going into our close. And what the key takeaway that I want you to know is from this session is that you do not have to be an expert. The template will keep you structured. And I want you to think about this as your recipe. So these are the 6 elements of your class. This is the recipe, but you are the icing on the cake. Your story, your experience, what impact they've made for you, that's the real juice that people will remember. So think about those 3 or those 6 areas, and I want you to write up your own, not write up your own, but just bring in your own examples. So that's it for today. Or for this micro lesson. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing all about your scripts. So have a gorgeous rest of your afternoon and I'll see you soon.